That's all. No. This is only the beginning. I'm still That's all, folks.
And welcome to the non-Christmas show of Van Allen's Attic. But I just couldn't wait. I couldn't stop getting in front of the camera. I'm doing Tom Snyder. Okay, and that's the end of the music. Go.
Yes.
Get over there, Kevin.
And we will make we'll make a television show.
I was told that I look like
you look like Charlie McCarthy.
Hey, Boygan.
Hey, Bergen. You know, I gotta tell you, my dad's old enough. He remembers the War of the Worlds, but he doesn't remember the War of the Worlds because, like most people, he was listening on the radio in 1939 or whatever year it was, 37, to Charlie McCarthy, which is what most of the people were doing because it was actually a low-rated show.
Well, some people did.
Mercury Theater.
They were saying prayers in Richmond.
Yeah.
That was in the paper. I saw the newspaper clipping.
Yeah.
And in Grover's Mill, New Jersey, who knows what the hell was happening? They were going wild.
Yes.
Hey, get that lamp. Turn the lamp out over there. I think it doesn't do good. Woo! Okay.
What lamp?
Anna, what lamp
too dark.
have we got here? All right, what do I need?
Who photographed this show? Laszlo Kovacs? It's all look like
Is it too dark? Is it too dark? Is it too dark?
No, it's all right. I'm just kidding.
I don't know. It might be too dark.
You want to know something, Keith? I figured out something.
This thing might.
Yeah. That makes a lot of difference.
I don't think so.
Take the hood off of it.
No, it needs a diffuser. There's what it looks like.
And that's what I look like.
Is that okay?
Yeah, it looks great actually. That's really great.
I will try the lamp.
Has that Twilight Zone look that we were trying to hope for.
The Greg Tolan photography.
I figured out something, Keith, is that we've been doing this show for at least a year.
And what is the name of the show?
It's called Van Allen's Attic.
Yes, get that in.
My name is Kaye Lazar.
Kaye Lazar.
And let me tell you something.
How far?
Every episode we do is basically a remake of My Dinner with Andre.
Except without waiters.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I mean, basically...
That's all we can afford. The set is about that big, you know.
The most innovative film of its day.
I've got to adjust the camera.
The most innovative film of its day that influences what content is going to be on the internet, believe it or not, is My Dinner with Andre, made here in Richmond.
Do I have to talk with Leth with that guy?
Who's that guy? Yeah, it was made in Richmond, or it was processed
made
here.
in Richmond. Takes place in New York at a French restaurant, but it was made. Part of the deal was refurbishing the Jefferson Hotel. A lot of the budget of the movie
is that what it
helped in the refurbishing of the
well,
Jefferson
they didn't have
Hotel.
that much of budget, but
yeah,
it does look like it looks like the Waldorf or something in the movie.
Yeah.
And I did run across. I didn't know that it was made here, but I ran across in the credits. I posted the movie a while back.
Oh yeah,
and then in the credits it says Commonwealth Film Processing. What? That's where I used to get all my student films and some of my commercials
In
when I
town.
started it. Yeah, that was the only film
Yeah.
processing lab in Richmond.
All right.
And a lot of cool stuff happened there. It was all 16 millimeter, but they had these big machines, and they were cool people. And it's out of business now. But a little bit of sidelight. Do you remember Sailor Bob?
I remember Sailor Bob.
Or do you remember Brian?
Brian, yeah, he was actually the producer of the show, wasn't he? Or like he was a technical guy.
He was a technical guy.
They never showed him.
But he actually worked not only at Channel 12, but later on he worked in the lab at Commonwealth Film. And when I went in there as a VCU film student to get my films processed, there was Brian.
Yeah.
And Brian Sharon. Brian Sharon was his name, cool guy.
Yeah, derby and glasses, kind of.
Yeah, just like Sailor Bob drew him. No, he was kind of a bald guy with kind of nice fuzzy liberal silver hair and a mustache and glasses.
Oh, you saw the old version of him.
Yeah. See, I saw him. I used to go to the Y with him. He was at the Y.
Let me tell you about.
I took showers with him, which was kind of strange. We won't go into that.
Let me tell you about Brian.
And you couldn't see his face. That's all. I mean, you could see his body, but it was his blank face.
He had a live performance, Sailor Bob, at the mosque, and I went to see the Banana Splits there, and the Banana Splits had the thing, and then they had intermission, and then Sailor Bob came out with his routine and the puppets and everything, and then they go, now we're going to meet Brian. Now this was very weird because
that was the later version, I think.
Back in maybe late 1960s,
because he did have another guy that worked with him, and he later on went to work at what's that big credit card company out in the West End?
Capital One.
Yeah.
Now what happened?
I ran into him too in a job.
But let me tell you about Brian. Brian, what happened was that now we're going to meet Brian, and then a real guy came out. That guy, and I thought Brian was when they don't show someone on camera. I thought they always make people.
No, there wasn't.
That's why we're always on camera, because we're real key.
That's right, and we are existing on the cyber whatchamajig. Yes. Hey, there's the camera. And we wouldn't fool you, not one bit. And but
not tonight anyway.
Yeah. And this thing doesn't work. But go ahead.
But this is the first show we've been doing in a while. Happy 2021 to you.
Yeah, and I didn't. I had shingles among other things, and I hope my scar didn't show them. I don't see it. I forgot to do makeup. Makeup. Yeah, but we're gonna have fun, and we don't know what we're gonna talk about, subject matters. But other than that, there's no script whatsoever.
I got a shingle shot. I had 2 shingle shots and a flu shot, but I have not. I'm still waiting for that COVID-19. I'm too young and glamorous, they said, to get because you have to be old and decrepit to get this thing.
You can't get the.
So only time being young and glamorous didn't work in my favor.
Well, I can't get a shot. Once you have shingles, you can get it again. I found.
Yeah.
But I can't get a shot for that until I've had the COVID. Yeah. They said don't get it yet because you can't take. Information for you people out there, you might need to know this. Is not kidding. True story. You cannot have a COVID shot around the same time that you have a shingles shot. You can't do that. And so if you go to a place that the pharmacy or wherever to get it done, be sure and tell them that if you've had a shingles shot or whatever you're planning to, they'll tell you don't do it. So I'm having to put off. I don't guess I'll get shingles again for a while because I just had it. And boy, that is a painful episode. I'm not worried about COVID as much as getting shingles. It's like knives in your head. My head, it was like big steak knives going ching, ching all the time. It was like
That's terrible.
It was a demon. Yeah, he took me to the emergency room. And I was, I sounded like Stan Kinison the whole way. I'm in pain! I want to go to the emergency room! Hello! You want my social security number? You want my insurance card? I'm in pain!
Sam Kinison.
That's the way I was. It was like that. And then they go away. It's like the demons that stick you. They'll go away, and you'll think, "Oh, they've gone away." No, they're just resting. They've gone to reload. They've gone in the back room of their little cave,
That's right.
And then they come back.
Yes.
And so you feel like you can fake them out, or you can fool them, but you can't.
No,
they won't hit you, but they will.
Yeah, and but I'd like to think the pandemic's almost over. I think things they claim
Well,
there
they're
might be
talking about
100
this-
million shots. in the
Well,
next
they
month
say
or
it's
so.
researching in place. It might be. They keep talking about the summer.
Don't let your guard down. Oh, still
Yeah.
wear your mask. Still wash your hands.
Yeah.
Do all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so far, all I really care about this whole year is to stay healthy. I got plenty of money. I got plenty of.
One thing I like
it's cool and
It's
style.
you may not want to hear this, but I like it the way it's slowed down.
Yeah.
Things were more like they used to be in the 60s and 70s or 50s or whatever.
Pollution has gone. Driving as much.
And
Yeah.
it's forced everybody to get on the bandwagon for the environment
Yes.
and alternate fuels.
it's a good thing.
Except for some Republicans who still want their big ass trucks and
yet, you would think the people out in the sticks would love the hunting and the fishing and stuff.
well, the word conservative originally meant you conserve
Yeah.
the farm. It was a 4-H word.
Yeah.
I'm a conservative. I'm a conservationist.
Yes.
Are you like Hank Kimball on dun 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 dun?
Yeah.
Green Acres.
Government guy.
Yeah.
Government worker.
And I got my yard looks like that. I mean, it looks like the front of Mr. Haney.
Yeah.
When I step out in my front yard, I hear the theme music go dun 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 dun. No, I haven't picked up that plow yet. I haven't picked up that piece of wood, and
That show was ahead of its time.
It was
I
great.
read somewhere that Mr. Haney, played by Pat Buttram, based the character on Colonel Tom Parker.
oh, really? And a nice Colonel Tom Parker.
Yeah.
Mr. Douglas, I've got just the thing for right here on my truck, and Mr. Douglas says, "Get out of here! Here, get on your truck. Here's your money. Goodbye." But
That's a show ahead of its time because it was. You look at it now; it's a very funny show. At the time, they just thought it was another hick show. Yeah.
I don't know, but
Yeah.
it took off. It was so satirical. I mean,
Yeah.
Governor Carstairs acting like Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
They blew up the bridge over Simpson Swamp.
Yeah.
Back when I was in my movie, Her Land is Lost, for which I won a Roscoe.
I know.
I love that episode. I love a lot of the episodes.
Oh, yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
wormholes, you got to have your wood pour key. And Mr. Douglas said, "Have you got your worm pour key?"
Yeah.
My worm pour key.
You know that the song from Green Acres was written by Vic Mizzy, and it was he also wrote the Addams Family song. Yeah.
Yeah, and some others.
And
too.
he wrote a lot of hit songs. One of the most famous being "Oh Mama, the Butcher Boy."
I didn't know that
one. By the Jones Boy by
I'm
the
a
Mills Brothers. Yeah, he wrote a lot of good songs.
big
Vic
fan,
Mizzy.
big fan of Vic Mizzy.
Yeah.
And another, I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but Mr. Green Jeans
Yes.
used to be a big arranger for
Oh yeah.
the Pennsylvanians.
Fred Waring.
Fred Waring. He was Fred Waring's arranger.
Yeah.
And then
Lumpy Branham.
Branham,
Yeah.
and then late 50s he was out of work. I guess the big bands had gone away, and somehow he got together with Bob Keeshan.
Yeah.
He said, "Here, I need a guy who can play the banjo and come up with little songs."
Yeah.
And I think, I'm not sure, but I think I grew up memorizing all those little songs that they had puppets and things.
Yeah.
Sleasley Weasley, what a mobile, chunking down the highway.
Yeah.
Remember? And
Yeah.
I'm Herkimer,
Yeah.
only don't they have Sterling
Yeah.
Holloway?
Yeah.
Anyway, I think Lumpy Branham wrote most of those
Yeah.
things.
I when I was a kid, I was on a lot of the children's shows like Bozo and Danny Beagle.
You were?
Yeah, I was on those with Sailor Bob.
Oh, we should get some tape.
There's no tape. There's nothing. I mean, that's
Dandy
the
Beagle
they erased
and
them all.
Super Dog.
And Superdog and everything. And the craziest thing was that I was so had the acting bug when I was 5, 6 years old that I told my dad, I want to be on all the shows now. I want to be on Captain Kangaroo. I never watched or Mr. Rogers. He goes, "Those shows are from New York. You're not going to go to New York." And I said, "Really? I didn't know they were from New York."
Well,
and they said, "Do you ever see any children on those shows?" I said, "No." He said, "That's right."
Mr. Rogers was a little bit too frou-frou for me. I'm a Captain Kangaroo man. My dad, And we watched those things together. And Captain Kangaroo, you could watch it with your dad because they had kind of adult humor on there, and the ping pong balls, and he'd come up with stuff. And one of the later shows, Captain Kangaroo got the hops for Dolly Parton. They did.
Who doesn't?
Yeah, I know. They put her down in the basement and they made her read this children's story, and it was this little old lady, and she had a bone, and she couldn't get rid of the bone, and said, "What am I going to do with this bone? Who wrote this stuff?" And everybody is laughing behind the camera.
Oh yeah, Dolly always gave the impression that she was like this naive girl, like this country girl in the big city type of girl. Not
too far.
But and I would imagine that, the Captain Kangaroo's writing staff probably rubbing their hands together. Let's have fun with this.
Dolly could have fun with it too, But that was back in the earlier part of her career, back when Porter Wagner, and they called her the Blessed One. And now we're going to have a song from the Blessed One.
Yeah.
Dolly Parton.
Yeah. I saw Dolly at King's Dominion once. I mean, performing, yeah.
Oh, I think she had her own theme park.
In fact, she even said, "This is just like my theme park."
Yeah, got to get a plug.
This was back in the '90s. I have since been to Dollywood, and
pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's like a typical theme park. It's very good rides and everything.
Near Gatlinburg.
It's in near Gatlin Pigeon Forge.
That's an entertainment center in itself.
It's like Branson, Missouri East. But anyway, they have this museum, all right. At there, you walk in and see, and it's have like little plaques with Dolly getting awards and Dolly's picture and everything. And they actually, start with Porter Wagner. Now, if you remember Porter Wagner, he had the nudie suits with all the. That was the name. They were called nudie.
They had a lot of sequins.
Yeah, a lot of sequins.
I thought they made her wear the nudie suits.
No, but let me tell you something. I hate to say this, but I was more impressed because I'm real in the clothes. I was more impressed with the clothes than Dolly's wigs and Dolly's dresses.
I was impressed with Porter Wagner's hair.
Oh,
it was
man.
like you could ski a big ski jump. You ever saw? You could imagine yourself going wee off the back of his hair.
Friend of mine told me that his name Brent. He told me that he once went to a Baptist preacher convention
sleepover. Oh, they have
and he said that
the sleepovers.
He said that half the men there, this is back in the early 1970s, and I always loved this, had Porter Wagner haircuts.
It's 10-gallon hair. You could inject it with all kinds and fill it up. It was like an inflatable. And you could also hide a hip flask in it.
Kind of neat.
Porter Wagner.
When you saw Porter Wagner even years later.
Conway Twitty.
Yeah. You see him
who could actually sing pretty good. Actually, if you listen, Conway Twitty, you'd say, "Who the hell is he?" But he was really good.
Oh yeah, I've seen Conway Twitty. I actually did see Conway Twitty. I saw him at the mosque. It was Skip Ewing, and then George Jones, and then Conway Twitty. Conway Twitty was the headliner. But I went to see George Jones.
Didn't he also do rock and roll?
I think he was a rockabilly singer, and then he wound up being a country singer. Like, well, I mean, a lot of these guys do because they find their niche. You know what's weird? This is what really.
Well, I like rockabilly. The old rockabilly was
that's my
really
favorite time.
Good stuff. I used to play when I was a DJ.
Mm-hmm.
I had a friend, Pop's record shop. Mm-hmm. He's no longer with us, but he had the best record collection in Richmond, and he would loan me these. Hard to find Link Ray Rumbles, Ray, all these other guys, really early. Yeah,
that and
hey, Babaloo,
Johnny Burnett and all those Wanda Jackson. That's my favorite type of music. Even Buddy Holly and I never knew Elvis and people. I mean, those are like what I like to hear.
I never knew who Buddy Holly was until years later. They made that comeback.
They made the movie, yeah.
And, well, there were people talking about it. I had a friend who was one of these rock and roll encyclopedias. In fact, everybody in Richmond that I know, it seems like they're a walking, talking encyclopedia. You're one. Walking, talking encyclopedia about something.
Yeah.
And I'm half, 3/4, 1/3 of one. But I can't keep it straight, so I come off with non sequiturs, but he, Buddy Holly, I never even heard of him. Of course, he died.
He died almost as soon as he made it. Right?
Yeah.
He's on Dead Soldier.
I think I'd heard of the Big Bopper
Yeah.
and all that. Hello, baby.
He had the big hit, yeah. And also the Richie, what's his name?
Richie Valens.
Richie Valens.
He was in
He
the
died.
play.
He died on
Yeah.
the same play in the Big Bopper.
I think I first
Buddy
heard
Holly.
about Buddy Holly when Don McLean came out.
that song. Yeah.
Yeah, and I
American
had a
Pie.
friend that explained it all to me, and then later it's all over the internet.
Yeah.
But back then I had Tommy Tony, who was a walking encyclopedia of
A friend of you.
yeah.
Yeah.
And we used to do comedy. We would bag groceries and tell jokes at U-Crops and not get too much work done. We were telling jokes. And I ended up making my first movies at U-Crops called Born to Bag.
Oh,
and,
wow.
And its sequel, The House of Raunch Food, which was a takeoff on Rich Food, which used to be...
Rich Food.
And that stuff was pretty bad. I don't know if they're still in business.
No, I haven't seen Rich Food in years.
But we used to make jokes about the peanut butter. You could lay bricks with it. And it was really just about that
Yeah.
bad. And, but anyway...
It wasn't Seal Test or something good. Yeah.
Oh, Seal
Rich
Test
Food.
ice cream, yeah.
Or
That was okay.
Cat.
Yeah.
actually, I never turned
Actually,
down
it was-
any ice cream.
It was
when I
too
a
much
kid.
sugar and everything, and I ended up being diabetic, and
Mm.
sugar is poison. But
Oh, it
the
certainly is.
white powder is worse than
Yeah, it's
coke,
worth the cocaine.
because you end up
That's the white powder you should avoid.
you end up eating that stuff from cradle to grave, right? Whereas you don't get into cocaine until your 20s, and then you get arrested. But sugar, you're soaking it up all your life, and if you got the right kind of constitution, it'll just mess
Yeah.
you up.
When I was,
Now I'm hooked on insulin.
I never add sugar or salt to anything because if you eat even if a little bit of processed food, a meal in a fast food place, you're going to get enough sugar and salt that you don't have to. That's enough taxing your system.
I love. Well, I've gotten
That's kind of a
into,
health nut.
I've
again,
gotten
already.
into health nut stuff too.
Yeah. You're a pretty good health nut. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Hey, Mr. Winkle. Yeah, Mortimer Snerd ate natural peanut butter. Ooh. I was just watching W.C. Fields. Anyway, that stuff, that peanut butter, Crazy Richard's peanut butter. Don't mean to be plugging too many products, but I mean, you can get it at Kroger's. It's all natural peanut butter.
Oh, so just
And
peanuts.
Smucker's make some too.
Smushed peanuts. That's all it is.
Yeah, and oil, and man, that stuff's good, and you can really live on if you're poor and you don't have anything else but a hunk of bread and that you can get by, and it's good.
I used to live in my early 20s when I first made it out of my own, and I didn't really.
You made it out?
I basically bought a big vat of peanut butter,
Yeah.
and you just eat it on like Triscuits all day long. I mean, that was really all I. And then like once a week, I would splurge on special days that have pizza on sale, and I would get a slice of pizza. Or
Yeah.
something. But I actually, believe it or not, I was healthy as a horse then. Healthier then than I am now.
Yeah, now you're
Eating
just
just peanuts.
now you're just a Shetland pony.
I was drinking black coffee, peanut butter, Triscuits. Actually, I should get back to. I used to have a macrobiotic diet for a while. I've had a lot of-
Acrobatic? What's that?
That's all brown rice. That's all you were eating. But
Oh.
then that was.
That goes right through you.
But let me no. But the thing,
Whoa.
just like that.
Yeah.
But let me tell you.
I was looking for
I
an
know you brought
excuse.
side.
I was looking for an excuse for a rim shot.
But let me tell you something. Then it turned out that carbs were bad for you, so then I said no bread, no rice. No
Yeah, a lot of
pasta.
these diets, they don't know what they're talking about. You do need carbs.
You do need them.
I mean, you need it for energy.
Well,
Now,
fruits and vegetables.
with me, with diabetes, regular white potatoes are bad for you, but red potatoes and sweet potatoes
Okay.
are good for you.
Yeah.
It's something in the chemistry, and I prefer red potatoes anyway. And
Yeah.
sweet potatoes I like too, but I can't do too much to get kind of sweet. In fact, I don't care for sweet taste much anymore. But
Yeah.
red potatoes, I had that and a cabbage in a pot today with some
There you
kielbasa sausage, and that was my
Oh.
lunch.
Oh,
And I've been
and a sausage.
Yeah, I have been cooking. I have been cooking in a
Yeah.
crock pot recently. Corned beef and cabbage.
Yeah.
I bought a corned beef, a big
Oh,
slab
fine.
after St. Patty's Day about 4 or 5 years ago. You pick it up the day after; it's real cheap, right? Stick it in the freezer.
There you go.
And now
a year later,
now I'm cutting off slabs of
you're
it
still eating.
and throw it in the crock pot with cabbage. It's good.
Oh, there's nothing. Corned beef and cabbage. You get.
I love that
I
stuff.
don't know why we only eat that once a year.
Ah, God, you're supposed to only do it on the day of the Irish. But that's a bunch of blatherskite, I tell you. You can eat it any time. Eat that. Come on, lad. Come on, lad. We're going to have some corned beef.
Yeah, a corned beef sandwich.
And I'm going to throw up.
I used to love when I was a kid, those that corned beef hash in the can.
No, but I love this stuff.
Yeah. And I didn't realize at the time, corned beef hash, corned beef and cabbage, hey, it's the same. And the corned beef on your sandwich at the deli. Wow, it's all the same thing.
What is corning anyway? Now, those,
I know what it is.
Does it have something to do with the seeds they give you?
Yes, it's not corn like corn on the cob. It's peppercorn, and that's the spice. I guess it's called. It could be called peppercorn. And
does
cabbage,
that preserve it? Does that?
It's a preservative, yeah.
Yeah.
But and it's a spicy. It's a good preservative. It's
yeah, a lot
natural.
of these things come from the potato famine or the poor days before refrigeration, and they had to smoke things and they had to do this, that, and the other to preserve meat.
And I don't eat any processed food. And you look on the labels of stuff, and they always said if it has an abundance of chemicals that have 4 syllables, don't eat it.
Dextromethorphan.
I know you can't pronounce it.
Do you remember good old dextromethorphan?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that stuff. Oh, give me some dextromethorphan. And monosodium glutamate.
Oh yeah.
I was ripping and rapping on that stuff before it became popular. But back
Chinese food.
in Oh
What?
man, that stuff will make you pee. I'm sorry, but it's the truth. I have to. I'm giving you guys the straight from the shoulder truth here. I wouldn't lie to you. It makes you pee all night long.
Yeah.
And even when you've done it all, you feel like and you're laying there and you can't go to sleep.
There's another thing called syrup. I saw a little
High
thing.
fructose?
High fructose.
Oh, fructose.
Fructose corn syrup.
I was a big fructose.
And let me tell you about the fructose of high fructose corn syrup, and also monosodium glutamate, is that they take what tastes all right and make it taste delicious, but as a result of it, all those chemicals are something your body doesn't need. Yeah,
but you get hooked on it.
Yeah.
But
better that your food doesn't taste that
But
good
I grew up
and be healthy,
being overweight and being hooked on Oreo cookies and couldn't get off the couch. I did watch some good Star Trek reruns, but I went, oh, it's Mr. Spock. Yes, Captain. It's green. Oh, okay. I'm back to sleep, and Scotty's getting drunk.
All they eat on Star Trek is that ice cream that the astronauts eat. That you get at the Science Museum.
Little outer space. It's like the astronauts eat. Astronaut got a segue coming up here. Got an astronauts eat those little square orange, blue, and green space food that they. It's delicious. Thanksgiving dinner. Hand me some of that cranberry sauce. Ooh, here's a square gelatin purple. Oh, stick it in.
It's like that little pill in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory turns that little girl into a blueberry.
Oh my God!
Oh, you can taste the whole Thanksgiving dinner, and then the blueberries come and
eat this stuff and make you feel better. Da 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 da. But you know, Raoul Walsh's original story was quite grim and dark, and Johnny Depp made a
Roald Dahl. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the one Johnny Depp made is true to the book.
Yeah. Well, actually, same name, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And the other one, this musical, is Willy Wonka.
But talking about the weird,
that's a better one.
But talking about the weird outer space food was going to be my segue. So let's back up to our segue to outer space thingamabobs, technology, and a theme.
We'll make it the final frontier right now.
Yeah, this is our object lesson, our attic object lesson for the evening.
He's going to do his Mr. Wizard imitation now. He's going to do the iodine and the potato trick.
No. Mr. Wizard was my uncle. I had a real uncle, Mr. Wizard. Oh, I wanted to make something real. I wanted to make a theremin. But I can't.
That sounds like the music to Birdman. It's all just percussion. Boom, boom. Sounds like a Buddy Rich drum solo. Oh, by the way, Buddy Rich was the first celebrity I ever met. I've met a lot of celebrities.
I've met him. I didn't meet him. I saw him live at Disneyland.
I saw him live, and he came to my high school, and you know, he bought a ticket to see him, and I sat up front on the floor with all the other little kids. And then when it was over, I shook his hand. He was very nice. I mean, I heard he was a rough guy, but he was very nice to me.
He was very rough to his band members.
Yeah, there's that famous video.
He would get on the bus with his band members, and suddenly he'd turn into Hitler and says,
yeah.
"You guys will not get any hard. We're going to sit here and rehearse."
Yeah. Which is weird because he was basically doing all the work with his drum solos. He didn't really need the band so much.
Okay, a little bit of Mr. Spock music.
Yeah.
Playing that thing he used to play, you know. What did he play?
Celesta?
Well, that music, it was like his tricorder. He played
the glockenspiel.
He played his tricorder. He had it hepped up on all kinds of electricity.
He played the intergalactic glockenspiel.
That's basically it. That thing sounded cool, though. Some kind of a Moog synthesizer. This is basically a Moog. I can't get it to sound like one, though. Anyway, okay, my Uncle Roland was Mr. Wizard, and he was my dad's brother, and he worked, you're talking about the old days of Twilight Zone and space program and all. Well, I was weirding out on Twilight Zone and Outer Limits and all that stuff, and at the same time, my Uncle Roland was working for the space program, and it was all a big, heady, weird, heady thing. And I touch on that in my...
Still the greatest thing mankind has ever done.
In my book. Where's my book? Oh.
The landing of the man on the moon.
And I touch on it in my book. My book, Ezekiel Saw a Wheel. We gotta plug the book.
What a good book.
Yes, he's in it.
It's not the good book, but it is a good book.
Yes. What? What did you say?
It's not the good book.
I'm gonna run this back. Oh yeah, not the good book,
but a good book.
And the Lord said He came down and He made a book, and it's all in the book. It's right here. It's in the book. Actually, it was a lot of weird books. It was a lot of books. A lot of that. Genesis is a lot of it's borrowed from the Babylonians, and a lot of the Gilgamesh and everything.
Yeah.
Up in the 1950s, my Uncle Roland was in the space program, and he got it
on the front. I can't really.
He got his. It's the satellite. All right. Do we remember there was Sputnik?
Yeah.
The Russians.
Yeah. Hold up the camera. Yeah.
And then we had to keep up with the Russians, of course. And so we came up with our version of Sputnik, which I think was called Vanguard.
Yeah. Like Van Allen.
Yeah. And my Uncle Roland was Roland Van Allen, so he fit right in up there.
It was Van Allen's Vanguard.
Yeah, he wasn't Dr. James Van Allen who invented the Van Allen belts, but he got to meet Dr. James. He worked with him briefly.
Yeah.
He worked out of the University of Iowa.
Yeah.
But anyway, all right, that's the Life magazine with the satellite on it, and there's a picture of my Uncle Roland working on that satellite.
Oh, great!
It's really cool. Well, just keep talking until I find the page.
See a lot of cigarette ads too.
Yeah, 1957 Chevrolet ads. I've got one with Kirk Douglas in here.
See Armstrong Tile. And Johnson and Johnson.
These
wax.
are great old ads. Oh yeah,
they went from Johnson Wax to Johnson Vaccine.
And here's Kirk Douglas trying to sell you a camera right here. It's got twin lens reflex. You can click the shutter and it comes out beautiful. And you can put a little attachment in the dimple of your chin and you can make it click the shutter while you stand back with your friends. You can do selfies. And
why does he have a belly button in his chin?
I don't know.
Figure that out.
Why does he sound like Andy Devine when I do it? Oh, okay. Here it comes. Okay, Uncle Roland.
Oh, okay.
Cousin Vera. Cousin Dan, Cousin Peter, be watching. Oh, God, I'm going to ruin my old magazine.
Well, maybe I should help you.
Yeah.
I'll hold the other. I'll hold
He's a brittle old
I'll hold it gingerly here.
All right. Get it on camera. Okay.
I don't know what I'm doing here.
All right. There is my Uncle the one up in the corner with the smoke.
Yeah. Oh, he's puffing away?
Yeah. He's soldering.
Oh, he's solder. Okay.
You see that
They're all
thing,
puffing
that
away
disc?
in the
You see that plastic disc?
Yeah.
and they make sure they say the word plastic. It's just like the
Graduate.
And he was. We'll read some of the text that goes underneath,
Yeah.
and down underneath, you can.
So that's your uncle,
Yeah, it's
Wow.
Roland Van Allen.
Roland Van Allen.
He got the tall genes, tall and bald genes. Everybody else was a little more squat and bald, but he got the tall, and he looked like
Those are just the women.
he really looked like yeah. He looked like a scientist in a white coat, you know. He looked like Mr. Wizard.
Yeah.
And I used to call him that. I did some cartoons of him and had a lot of fun with him. And he could give a great talk.
Oh,
And he
seems
gave
like
us
brilliant man.
gave us a couple of tours through NASA.
Oh, wow.
And
In Florida?
No, up in
In
Washington.
Washington. Okay.
Goddard Space Center.
Okay.
And he worked with Werner von Braun and all that stuff. That's where all the brains was outside of D.C.
Yeah.
where all the designing took place. Houston is more, and Florida is for
Landing.
launch. No, Florida is for launching, and Houston is for tracking.
Yeah.
You know where it's going.
And I remember there's a movie, Hidden Figures, where the mathematicians, all those women, black women, they were in like Newport News or somewhere. Yeah. Or
What black woman?
There's a movie called Hidden Figures. One of them's like 100 years old. That's still alive.
And they were in the space program.
They were in the space program. Yeah.
What did they do?
They were mathematicians. They were brilliant women that did quite well for themselves. Yes. And they've made the movie with I think Viola Davis. Yeah. I was surprised it all took place not too far
anywhere.
from here.
Read. I can't
50
read.
miles or something.
What does it say here? Engineering.
So I can't read.
It says engineer Roland Van Allen.
I can read this. Components to a plastic telemetering card, which will combine up to 48 signals from the instruments into a single coded radio message.
48. Imagine that. Now my computer does 56 terabytes.
Yes.
But anyway, this was the Life magazine.
Yeah.
Ooh. And
picture Elizabeth Taylor in there too.
no, it was Marilyn Monroe.
Marilyn Monroe.
She's in here somewhere.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
it was spaghetti and meatballs. Franco-Americans.
Yes.
Spaghetti
Was
and-
SpaghettiOs.
Yeah.
Canned spaghetti. What? That was a move forward in science.
And there goes
For those people who don't know how to boil
there
their
goes
own
the
pasta.
rocket.
Yeah.
And well, anyway, Maryland's
All right.
and hearing all kind of these great old ads, Ghibli's vodka.
A lot of lucky strikeouts.
Yeah. Everybody's smoking. Even Kirk Douglas.
Yeah.
Okay. Put that one carefully over there.
When I was a kid, I see a lot of Kodak ads. There was no other camera but Kodak when you were a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was called a Kodak.
Yeah.
Here, hand me the Kodak.
Yeah.
It didn't matter what kind of camera it was.
There was
They
no
were
Japanese.
Mitsubishis and Yapanapidis and
Nikon.
I got a whole
Canons.
I got a whole cabinet full of
Yeah.
them over there because my dad was a photographer.
Well, it was American. That's what I think is patriotic.
Well,
Kodak,
we got all kind. We got a few Jicas and
Well, yeah, but I mean, people were felt even in the post World War II days that why should we buy Japanese cars or Japanese cameras?
Well, my
Japanese
dad
anything.
my dad wasn't like that. He
Yeah.
wanted a neat camera. He'd buy any kind of camera. Someday we'll have to have a camera show.
The best cameras were, I think, from Germany. Leicas.
But this is a scientific boovie magazine with boovies in it. You know what a boovie is? A boovie is a kind of a hippie term for neat little factoids you find in a mag. This is a boovie. I remember they used that word in a hippie magazine.
Teen Beat.
Science boovie. There was a thing in one of the VCU magazines or something called Science Boovies.
My college loved magazines and newsprint. I don't know what they do now.
You know, when my
everything reads you read a digital bulletin and that tells you everything you want to know.
Here it is again. Here's Uncle Roland again.
Uncle Roland.
He got two magazine appearances.
Yeah.
Probably some of the shots from the same photo session, and this
Is
magazine
he wearing the same shirt?
probably bought them from Life.
Yeah.
I think he was.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was working on the same piece of equipment.
Unless it's his uniform.
Yeah, and it says
I think he's wearing a white jacket.
engineer.
Yeah.
R. Van Allen is shown in the facing page of shorting out the device. No, a shorting switch. Oh, and this one he's working on a shorting switch.
Okay. No,
But he had his hands.
How long
all
did he
over
work for NASA? And
his
whatever
whole,
became of him?
most of his career. I mean, I remember when he kind of got the job. I remember my dad all talking about it in the mid-50s.
Mm-hmm.
He worked till he retired in the 70s or early 80s or something.
Yeah.
And he used to give us tours, and he showed me the Hubble telescope.
Yes.
They had a working replica of the Hubble telescope in NASA, so they could keep track of the one they put up in the air. They had guys working on it here. All right, you got a problem up in space. We will figure out what it is by replicating the same movements on this one. It was full size, great big room, duct tape all over it.
They had a lot of trouble when they first launched it. They lost it or something, and it took years for them to send a rescue mission to refocus it, and then it turned out great.
I couldn't get over that though. How much duct tape was on the thing?
I know.
Of course, they did. It didn't matter. That was a dummy.
You can't really,
or it worked. I guess it worked. But
when you invent something for NASA, there's no a store you could go to get. You have to invent it. It's
That's
all
right.
new stuff.
And they always had budgetary problems.
Yeah.
He was talking about the budget problems the whole time.
Yeah.
But he gave us a great tour and of the whole facility up there. Yeah. And I took video. I'll show the video of it one of these days when I get my technical thing. Yeah. When I can show video, I'm trying to build a YouTube channel. Yeah. And once we do that,
I already got one.
Yeah.
I already have one.
Well, I got a personal one. Do you have a business one?
Business?
Yeah, I'm talking business. It's going to be.
This is my business.
We're going to make money.
Okay. I'm looking forward to making
money.
Money? What's that? I haven't seen that in a couple of years. Oh, I love that sound.
Yeah, that's money.
That's.
It fell out of heaven. Coins.
Coins that ringle, they rhyme when they jingle, make such a lovely sound. Doing
Mr. Magoo's.
Bye, George.
Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol. Anyway, so Uncle Roland was telling us all. He showed us all the facility.
Yeah.
And I got to meet some crazy characters.
Did you meet any astronauts?
No, but I met a scientist.
Yeah.
Who told me years before I heard about it in the media that we've discovered. I had lunch with a guy, and we've discovered all kinds of matter in the universe. We get the readings of matter coming back from our signals, but we can only 98% of it we can't account for. There's only a few. And it's invisible. And I said, "Oh, you've discovered God." And then he said, "Now you sound like Oral Roberts."
The God particle.
But that's the actual truth. It's like 90% of the matter in the universe cannot be seen. They don't really know where it is, but they can detect it.
Does it? Is it an element that is on the periodic chart of elements that exist today?
I think it's subatomic particles.
Okay.
And in fact, my theory is that heaven or the ghostly realm or the great beyond or whatever is made up of subatomic particles and actually really exists. It's not just dreams and religion. And that's why ghosts can pass right through you. And you get the heebie-jeebies, you get the Jimmy Jaws. You go, whoa, you get that cold feeling.
I get the same feeling when my boss catches me on the internet when I should be working.
That's right. Yeah.
I'm on the computer.
He bought a downsized version of it. He has connections to the government, and he uses that on you.
We're not paying you to watch YouTube all day.
So, and then there was this other thing, which I can't talk about. But he showed it to me, And later I thought, gee, if terrorists knew about this, it would be kind of dangerous.
It wasn't the alien autopsy, was it?
Well, it's from that part of the world.
Okay.
And some signals.
New Mexico.
Signals that go out, and if anybody did something. So I bleeped over it in my tape.
Yeah.
And I put some Ricky Ricardo music. It's very nice. Yeah. Yada da da da. I'm eating rice. So I have a card saying, you can't see this.
I have a problem with a lot of technology and a lot of like space invaders and everything. For example, I'll tell you, this is what I think. I don't want to go to Mars. In the 1960s, when the space program got in the gear, and we started becoming very technical and started to understand a lot what goes on. I mean, what if the aliens who came like 100 years ago or 200 years ago, we were like very simple, tribal, primitive people, and we didn't know anything about. There may have been a few mathematicians and stuff, and the guys who could invent.
And then Joey Ross would.
But we didn't have the rocket ships or anything.
It's about time. It's about space. It's another Sherwood Schwartz TV series.
That's well, that's a
he did Gilligan's Island.
That's a good point. Why did the cavemen speak English? That's what I never understood.
Because the
Joey Ross.
Because the network said they jolly well better, or we won't have any ratings. That's why. But
people read
Sherwood Schwartz was neat.
People read the Bible thinking that everyone in Jerusalem and places like that, Nazareth, speak English.
We talking about Charlton Heston again? Yeah, must speak Shakespearean English. And here come the 10 Commandments. Be gone.
Yeah, they probably
to be or not to be. It's not to be.
They spoke Aramaic, and they also spoke probably Hebrew, but they also spoke Latin and Greek.
Who knows?
Because the Romans were probably
and Abraham sure as hell didn't talk like George C. Scott.
No,
Lord, it means nothing. What?
George C. Scott, like, well,
I love that.
Yeah,
the Bible.
Yeah.
And the worst part of the Bible, directed by John Huston, is the Adam and Eve part. But it's.
Hey, I keep trying to see.
But I love the Noah.
Hey, I almost saw something there, a side of a boob or something.
Yeah.
They keep cutting away from something you want to see.
And the Lord said, and nobody realizes that I'm an atheist, the director. But anyway,
I saw a movie when I was a little kid at the drive-in. About Adam and Eve. I found out years later it was a Mexican film, and it was all pretty much all silent. And they showed the butt, but they never showed anything front on the woman or on the man. So, but I kept trying to, as a little kid, catch it.
You kept wishing for 3D TV.
They'd always show the woman like from the shoulders up, so you knew she was naked or naked legs, but you never saw anything you wanted.
But you know what?
Especially when I was 5 years old.
You know what? We got more excited. We got more excited back in those days. It's the theory of the pot, the kettle put on the pot.
Yeah.
In the days of Marilyn Monroe, when sex was steamy, you didn't show but so much, and you kept the steam in by keeping the lid on the kettle. You show a little bit. It's like the 7-year itch, and she stands over that grate.
Yeah.
And what do they keep? It's an iconic poster from that day forth. Yeah. It's her standing over that grate.
Yeah. And that was
because
in the breakup of her marriage to Joe DiMaggio.
Oh.
He was very jealous of all the men ogling her when she was doing that scene. And from what I gather, he came from like an old school family. Like he said, he was.
But he stayed in love with her. He paid for her funeral and everything.
I think a lot of that was guilt because he kind of treated her pretty right. He was only married to her for less than a year, and what happened was.
Well, most guys wouldn't have been able to handle it.
He fell in love with her because she was so sexy and everything. And then when he married her, he said, that sexy thing with the grate and all that stuff, that's coming to a complete grinding halt. You're going to dress like my mother now. Long black Italian mother. All long black dresses and veils and everything. And she said, I don't want any of that. And so they got a divorce. Yeah. And then when she got into the wrong crowd, and there's all these, the Kennedys,
she got with the Kennedys,
and Arthur Miller, and all that other stuff,
and she got murdered,
and the mafia,
and nobody knows really what happened. But let me tell you something: I think a lot of that was he kind of dropped the ball on
Some people
Marilyn,
say
and I think all
the
those years he
CIA
was giving roses and everything to her.
some people
he was
say
very
the
guilty about it.
well, but they say the CIA did away with her because she was going to give away government secrets.
Yeah, probably. You know, no, it was a very because she was actually doing quite well at the time, and why someone would commit suicide. But she probably. I think.
Have you seen footage from that last? Something's got to give.
Something's got to give with Dean Martin.
Interesting title. Interesting title.
It was based on the song. They actually made the film with.
But I mean, the way it applies to
but not
what happened, you know, something's got to give, and she's gone.
Yeah.
But I always remembered the first time I ever saw Marilyn Monroe was on Life magazine.
Yeah.
And I was about 8 years old or something, and my friend and I to us, she looked like an old hag.
Yeah.
It was a picture of her, and she had this. It looked like gray hair. It couldn't have been gray, but it was all kind
black
of
and white picture of her blonde hair, platinum blonde.
Well, I think it was a bluish something. But anyway, this picture of her, and when you're little kids, a grown-up woman in her 20s can look like an old lady to you. It's weird.
It's weird, yeah. Women
it's like
in
my
20s,
second grade teacher, Mrs. Carter. She was like old lady Carter.
Yeah.
And I saw a picture of her not too long ago in the yearbook. And she was quite a babe, you know.
Not only that, she was probably in her like mid-20s.
Yeah.
They graduate from college like in their early 20s, so they become
They
teachers.
used to
They're
have
not as old as you thought they were.
They used to have, and my mom even had some of these hairdos in the 50s. The conservative suburban ladies would have these tight curly hairs that weren't very flattering.
Yeah.
Some of them.
And
it was like in the blue-haired old lady syndrome, but it was like tight and kind of like you could hit a spoon with it and it would ring, you know.
And that hairnet spray hairnet, that spray.
Have you ever kissed a girl that does that?
I'm looking forward to kissing a girl soon.
I mean, like
when the pandemic's over.
I remember the wonderful girl I knew, kind of country girl, and she had a Ellen Mae Clampett hair, and she kind of like Ellen. And anyway, but she sprayed it. She put the spray on, and the minute you try to nuzzle, it's like running into barbed wire or Brillo pads and stuff.
It's like a like one of those peeps. It's that hard on their head. Yeah. Someone could break it.
It's protective coating, I guess.
But I know what you're saying because it's seeing. There were a lot of women when I was growing up. I didn't think were all that good looking. Old time movies back in the 30s or 40s, and then I found out that the reason why I didn't think they were so good looking was I only saw them like on talk shows in the 60s and 70s. People like Joan Fontaine or people like that, or Olivia de Havilland. Or
Zsa Zsa Gabor.
And I didn't know that when they were younger they were really good.
There were people on Carson, like Zsa Zsa Gabor and stuff that seemed like they just came on, and they came on with a chihuahua or something. And hello, darling, and they used to say, "What do these people do for a living, or why do they exist?" They just come on talk shows, and they say, "It's a true story, darling." And back then it seemed like there was a lot of people like that. That just came on a talk show, and that's what they do.
They did that for publicity.
Kind of like what we do.
They wanted people to hire them, I think. They appeared on these shows.
Zsa Zsa,
as the show that they were still around. And
Zsa Zsa's movies were few and far between, and she was hard to get along with.
She's in Moulin Rouge.
But Ava is wonderful.
Yeah.
Ava, and you hardly saw her until Green Acres, and she just fell in love with Ava. And she's almost a twin to her sister, but such a big difference.
Oh, yeah. Zsa Zsa lived a long time, and also I would see and what was weird was you would see these people and you didn't realize maybe early on before they were on Merv Griffin or Johnny Carson they had probably won an Oscar or something.
We'll be right back. When we get to the point we can have cutaways on the show, I want to do Merv going, "We'll be right back." The thing of it is on Merv Griffin.
I love the comedians.
I love those cutaways because Merv would go overtime. Keep talking and talking. Ooh. And then later on, they'd have to edit the show to make it fit into the hour and a half format. And so Merv would be talking along. Yes, Joe, we're here with John Lennon. And then they cut and go, "We'll be right back."
I used to do.
They just cut. We'll be right back.
I used to do a show with George where we had a lot of guests on there, and I actually said, George, instead of just him and I talking the whole time, we had guests. Well, a lot of them were waiting for the show to end, to come on, and the show was like almost about to end.
When you were at the station.
Yeah, and I would say, let's. I said, I don't care. Bring out everybody at the end, and we'll all just start talking or singing or something. I got that from Merv Griffin. Because Carson just would have them one at a time, and then that was the end of it. Yeah.
Well, no, they'd fill up the couch sometimes.
Well, they'd fill up the couch, but once that person moved to the next, you never heard.
Well, some of them. Well, if it was Robin Williams,
if it was Robin Williams or Mel Brooks or something, they would. Or Steve Martin, they would. It was a comedian. But most of the time, they were just, I don't even know why they even hung out. People like Bob Hope would always leave.
It was like a living room. Bob Hope. He would show up without being invited. He'd walk in, hey, Johnny, how's everything here on the, we ought to get out and play some golf. Okay, I'll see you later. Yeah.
I heard Carson didn't like having Bob Hope on there because he would only talk about what he was doing, make jokes. He never gave a real interview to Carson, just, was just there to make jokes, then he'd leave.
Yeah.
You know why he was always on there? Someone told me.
He owned the network.
Well, this is really neat what he would do. He would do like a Christmas special, for example, and then like 2 days before the show would air, he would appear on Carson. They did not tape the monologue. And what happened was the topical jokes. When the Carson show was over, Bob Hope would come out, and he was already left the show.
What do you mean they did not tape the monologues?
They used Carson's audience, a different audience than did the special, and he would do the joke, the new joke about Ed Meese or about John Sununu or something like,
And then they would cut in a different Carson show, you're saying?
No. They would.
Or a Bob Hope.
Bob Hope appeared on Carson, and then he'd walk off the show, and then it'd have, with other guests. And then when the show was over, they would tell the audience, now, if you want to stay, Bob Hope's going to come here and tell his jokes. And that was what they filmed to put on at the beginning of the new special that was going to be on in 2 days or so. So that's why the jokes were always new. He always talked about what happened.
And on the Bob Hope show, he'd be standing in front of the Johnny Carson curtain.
Audience. Yeah, he'd be in front of
It's his curtain.
It's his curtain, yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
What was he trying to do? Save money on studio
time? No, well, it was saving money, but it was also to keep the jokes fresh. So he didn't tell jokes about,
what news. Johnny did.
Yeah. See, Carson could do that because Carson was on every night, almost every night. Yeah. He would when he didn't have a guest host, but he always told topical.
And so did Bob Hope.
Yeah. Bob Hope actually,
he was the biggest. Bob Hope, in the beginning, I didn't respect because when I knew him as a kid, he was this guy that'd come on Carson and you could tell he was looking at the cue cards.
Yeah.
Really looking at cue cards, and then he'd do the Army thing, looking at the cue cards.
Yeah.
Gorgeous women, and Dad would say, he's looking at the cue cards.
Yeah.
But then you realize the career that went in before. Yeah. You see his old movies, and they're great.
Very good. Yeah.
And his radio appearances. So you see the huge breadth, the dramatic arc of his career. And the last thing he did, he was about 100 years old and did a McDonald's commercial.
That's right. Well, the neat thing about Bob Hope, like you said, that long career, he worked very hard in movies and radio and stuff. But then when he got older, he was doing these specials.
He did so much he didn't have time to memorize anything.
And the specials were my dad, like, it's time to go to bed. But I want to watch Bob Hope. He goes, okay, I'll let you watch the first 10 minutes of the monologue. But then once Brooke Shields starts singing,
and we're gonna have a polka. Oh, Lord's a barrel, we'll have a barrel of fun. Yeehaw! Roll out the barrel, we got the blues on the run. I don't know no more words. I don't want to.
Had up a gang of for cheer. Everybody roll out the barrel, 'cause the gang's all dear.
Okay, turn it off.
I ran out of lyrics.
I don't know what I
Now I gotta dance.
Yeah.
If you would have kept playing, I would have had to do it, because how can you play a polka sitting down?
I didn't know how to polka in there.
Yeah. You should be on the Lawrence Welk show.
Wonderful. Turn off the bumbling machine. And the Lennon sisters are going to be singing for you. Okay, everybody come out and pee on your toes.
And now we're going to hear a medley of songs from World War II.
Sung by Georgie Jessel. Right here.
Sound like Georgie
Georgie
Jessel.
Jessel. And we, Mama, this is Georgie from the Money. Oh, Mama, hello, Mama. That's his old routine.
It's funny he was still doing that routine at 80 years old. Still had a living mother.
Hello, Mama.
Was he doing a seance at that point?
Hello, Mama. I'm 97. I got Alzheimer's. What's Alzheimer's? I'm an old timer, Mama. You should know this stuff.
He's a funny man, George.
Yeah, I know it. And they drag him out every now and then. Georgie Jessel.
He's in a rock and roll movie made in the 1950s.
Ronnie Burton and I used to do imitations of him.
Oh, yeah. Georgie Jessel.
Georgie.
And I remember Georgie Jessel was in this movie with Jack Jones. It was made in the 1950s. And what was really funny about it was when Georgie Jessel, it was like one of these American International type films. And he comes out and he says, and Jack Jones says to the girl beside him, that's Georgie Jessel. He's one of the most famous comedians in America right now. And this was like in the 1950s when his career was pretty much over.
Oh, no, he was big in the 20s.
Yeah, I know. And I'm sure they put that in there just so they could get Georgie Jessel.
They put him on Vitaphone, filmed him. His career was already on the way down. And did he make some movie? I think he did make some short comedy movies.
He's actually in a film directed by an X-rated film directed by with a lot of Playboy because Erroneous Monk, Merkin, Ever Find Mercy Hump, and Find True Happiness. It was written and directed by.
This is a title.
Yes, it was written and directed by Anthony Newley, and he wrote all the songs for it. Milton Berle's in it too, and Stubby
What
Kaye's
kind of
There's
film?
a lot of nudity in it.
What kind of film director am I that cannot fall in love? I cannot make a take. I don't know how to cut the film above or below or whatever.
It was a Fellini-esque ego trip, this film. You might catch it on TCM every once in a while.
Yeah, I like to check that one out.
But it has nudity in it.
But
so it wouldn't get an X-rated now.
A reason I was asking, there is some film, and he's got dark hair and he's young.
Yeah.
Back there with Eddie Cantor and stuff.
Yeah.
There's some old 30s footage of him. Maybe I don't know if he appeared. I think he did appear in some features, features or shorts or whatever.
Yeah. Well, he was always funny when I was a kid.
Leon Earl.
He was appeared. Leon Earl was in.
He was funny.
Was in the Mexican Spitfire movies. And he's so good.
And he always played Lord. What's his name?
That was so funny.
It was a good movie.
And Lupe Velez, you can't get out of that.
Lupe Velez.
There's a hot tamale.
But he did a whole slew of them where he's the Lord of the castle, or he's in the hotel.
Yes, and those movies are a good example of why. It doesn't really matter the script so much of the story, just to have appealing people as the stars, and yet those two that were so funny.
Yeah. It was good writing too.
It was great writing.
There is
chemistry. Yeah,
there is directing involved with that too. I mean, it's what to cut when, and the camera doesn't show anything spectacular, but it's the speed and the timing and what's happening when and after this, and whoop, boom, and then you land and you got a funny film.
Yeah,
but if you do whoop, boom, gang, and do it the other way around, it's not funny.
Yeah. Yeah, you know all about humor.
Humor.
Didn't you once post a cartoon of Gremlins from Warner Brothers?
Yes. Oh, bring it up, will you?
Yes.
I'm at. Well, I don't know if I've
seen this video.
I don't know.
Talk about it.
I don't know if I should talk about it on FB or not. But they put one of the reasons you haven't seen me for the last month, aside from shingles and car breaking down and couldn't get my insulin because of insurance, and I had to get new insurance. And anyway, I was in Facebook jail. Other people have said they've been in Facebook jail. I have been in Facebook jail. If I had the wings of an angel, I'd fly out of Facebook jail.
What did you do?
What did I do?
Did you rob a Facebook bank?
Yeah. If I'd done that, nobody would have touched me. But you know what I did? What the big sin I committed? I posted one of the greatest cartoons ever made in the 20th century, and certainly the greatest World War II satirical cartoon. And it was satirizing Hitler. That was why they It was during all the thing at the Capitol and all that. I guess they didn't want to offend all the Hitler lovers or whatever. But Bob Clampett, Russian Rhapsody, originally entitled Gremlins from the Kremlin. Gremlins from... We are gremlins from the Kremlin. And who is going to take the great bomber and fly to Moscow? It must be Fritz Freeling and Ulster. It's got to be the greatest Superman of all time. Who's that gonna be, Führer? You? Who else? Is all this Jewish humor coming from Hitler and and then animated by Bob McKimson, one of the greatest animators of all time, the best one at Warner Brothers, and
the Warner Brothers.
No, but they had the animators.
Yeah,
they had caricatures of all the Warner's animators.
That's
Chuck Jones and everybody.
That's why it's significant, because the art is a little different because all the people
Rod Scribner and Manny, they were Jewish.
They were all
great animators, and it's one of the greatest. One we were talking about Hitler earlier. You can't help but be growing up when we did. This weird thing about World War II on TV, it was everywhere, and you saw all these...
The Nazis were still the villains then.
Yeah, and
rightly so.
And all I knew was that there was this big, I saw him in black and white, this big shadowy guy with the hairdo and the mustache, going, what the fuck, and all these shadows, and bombers and things, and crazy gremlins, and I was going, wow, and then I found out my dad was in that. And then the songs like Whistle While You Work, Hitler is a jerk, Mussolini is a meanie, whistle while you work. We kids were singing those things.
I remember the Fuhrer's face.
In the Fuhrer's face.
Yeah,
that's great. I didn't discover that till later. But yeah, all that stuff, it was so much energy. Of course, it was World War II. Who wants a war like that? But it happened, and the whole world revolved. It was like the axis. It really was. Yeah. Everything changed, technology and everything. Yeah. It's a strange thing, and it's still learning the lessons of that. And so there's a certain...
We should never forget that. So let me tell you.
No, you can't, and you don't want to forget. Yeah. And there were great horrors and everything, but there was some tremendous comedy that got those boys to get in those airplanes and to go fight, and Abbott and Costello, all this stuff was verving everybody up to go fight, and some of the best comedy and stuff happened because of that.
And you don't think they don't do it in the countries making fun of Americans? You know that when the Buck Privates, the movie with Abbott Costello, where they played these recruits on the way to World War II, there's a comedy. Then you know how inept Abbott Costello were. They would show that movie in Japan during World War II and say, "This is what the American soldiers are like." I'm not kidding you. That's the same movie that the Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy. I
tell you, the people that win the wars are the ones that can make good, funny propaganda. Because ours was great. And have you ever seen a Nazi propaganda cartoon?
No, I've seen their movies, though.
They did make some, and boy, the most boring thing you ever saw is, this guy, he's rolling around like a robot, and the eyes are going, whoop.
I see their prints. They're pretty...
Not that there haven't been some great German animators since then before.
Well, they all came to America.
Well...
Because, animators famously thumb their noses at the bad part of society.
Under that system, how could you make anything?
So I would assume that any good animators probably left.
Well,
came to America.
There may have been some. Yeah, there were film directors.
Live
action. A lot of they came in the 30s.
Yeah.
As far as animation is concerned, there were a few that came and worked at the studios. One was the voice of was Christian Rubb. Mm-hmm. He was the voice of Geppetto in Pinocchio.
Oh, yeah.
And he did a good job. Pinocchio, yeah. But he was a big fifth columnist. He was a big Hitler promoter.
Oh,
And
wow.
they couldn't stand him at the studio.
Oh,
He was
man.
always
I didn't
walking
know.
about. He says, "You should listen to this fellow here." So anyway, he was
Is it
perfect.
Italian?
No, he was German.
He was German.
Geppetto.
Well, Geppetto, I assume
Oh, that's
was Italian.
northern Italy.
Yeah, I assumed that an Italian guy would do the voice, but I got
No.
Yeah,
It's German Italian. It's like the story takes place almost in Switzerland. If
Yeah.
you remember the opening of it,
yeah,
and how he gets to the ocean. Of course, it is an Italian story.
yeah.
Oh, yes, he has an Italian accent, but it's kind of like, oh, yeah.
Geppetto. Yeah. A lot of Italians live in Switzerland. So
Well,
yeah,
he did a
yeah.
kind of an Italian-German thing.
Yeah.
But it was perfect for the part. But the guy in real life was...
Do you know that
and he lived for many years in Hollywood. I don't know if he ever changed his politics.
there's World War II Twilight Zone episodes that Rod Serling had a hard time getting past the CBS people. And they said, there's a lot of people that sympathize with the Nazis, and this back in like the late
60s?
in the 1960s. He said, really? He goes, yeah, and I think your new script about maybe the Holocaust or about the Germans being villains or something is upsetting all the neo-Nazis and anti-Semites that live in the heartland of America.
No, they're all...
In other words, you're upsetting the people who you should be upsetting.
Network executives are always worried about selling soap.
Yeah.
And, Nazis can be very clean.
Yeah. Well, we figured out, in the last few months, with that, with all that revisionist election history that happened, and then it all came to a head on January 6th, that there is half this country, there is an element that is fine with fascism, fine with racism.
But,
I thought that like when we were talking about, we've gone past that. No, we haven't gone past that.
I'm a Southerner, and I'm a son of the Confederacy, and I'm a son of the Yankee. I'm Yankee and Confederate, and I'm also
Man for all seasons.
I have relatives who were abolitionists, and I'm proud of all of them. I take it as a great American saga that happened a long time ago, part of the history. We've made movies about it. Mm-hmm. And why dig it up and fight the war over? Now, a lot of white Southerners and other conservatives have been treated pretty shabbily in the liberal media. And they ignore us. They usually don't talk about us except to put us down. This doesn't always happen. If it's country music, they'll do something. But it's been a lot of that for so many years, and there is a slant against it. So I have to stand up to a certain extent and support conservative people who a lot of my relatives or whatever, and love. They're nice people. Now there are a few that
there's always one in every family.
I have one, at least one in my. I had one that married into the family. We had a big family. I think he was in the Klan, but and his daughter did too. But we had a huge family, and some people, friends, they'll suddenly come out, and these aren't the majority by any extent, and there are plenty of them up north too. But they'll come out and say, that Hitler had a good idea, and. So you try to get into an argument. You try to stay friends with them, and you love them. They're people you love or know.
These are friends of yours?
Yeah. Well, I have a cousin who's a very fine nurse, and he will take care of you whether you're black or white or whatever. But then he gets on politics, and that Hitler had the great idea. It's a lot
surprise you, yeah.
But I don't. Facebook but I do not believe in shoving that under the carpet. I think we ought to have TV shows about all this and show everybody the way it really is, and have some racial talk and just try to be realistic about. And most of the people here are very wonderful people. We do have some nuts. Yeah, we have a lot of Southern nuts. Some of them are very tasty. Pecans. But God, you can go up in Ohio and Michigan, and you can find all
those politicians
and New York. I mean, you can find a lot of
crazy
Nazi characters.
QAnon nuts,
yeah. Where did that come from?
I don't know. I mean, you I mean, you can't. It's
Well,
almost like you. I don't even waste my breath arguing with people anymore like that. If once they say something like that, I just say, all right, I'm not going to convince you. You're going to have to learn everything the hard way.
Trump had a chance to be an eloquent voice for the right wing, and he kind of blew it. He's
elder statesman,
just nuts.
Actually, still is
something, and he's a voice. He's a voice for the conservative people who've been treated shabbily by the liberal northern media, which I usually watch mostly. But I don't like it. I don't like when the slant starts going there. You got to give them some respect. Rednecks need respect, just like anybody.
Yeah.
No, but it's not all rednecks, but we're all in this country together, and everything. We got our crazies on the right. And our crazies on the left, the extreme crazies. I get so tired of everybody being so extreme. Yeah. It's in the middle.
Truth is in the middle.
Yeah, almost. It's like a ship going down the road, or a truck going down the road of life, and you got to turn to the left sometimes. You got to turn to the right, and if you turn too much, you'll go in the ditch, or you'll go around in circles, and that's what you call a revolution.
Everything goes around, comes around.
That's like the French Revolution. French Revolution was for liberty, equality, fraternity. Ended up with, it was good basically, but we ended up with Napoleon and all that.
Yeah.
And you ever see those old movies about the French Revolution?
Oh, yeah.
Usually some old lady in the crowd going, La guillotine!
Madame Lafarge.
Oh, la guillotine!
Madame Lafarge knitting, yeah.
Madame Lafarge?
Yeah.
What was that?
That's in, I think it's in A Tale of Two Cities. Which that's English, but
well,
it's about the French Revolution.
I looked for it in Tale of Two Cities, the movie, and I didn't see it.
Yeah.
But in one of those, and a few of those, there's always some crazy people that were fascinated by heads coming off. And it tracks
the
crazy.
fascist level is limited.
Well, I don't know if you call that fashion. Fashion.
Take delight in
but it's madness, yeah, and just sickness and madness and then some of the characters on their liberal side and all their protestations.
I can understand protesting like on January 6th if you really were sincere and all. But once people started moving towards the Capitol and breaking windows, it's, okay, I'm out of here. Well, you're on your own.
Most of them, once they got in there, they
didn't know what to do.
They had an intrinsic respect for the Capitol in their background, you know. And once they got in there, they started just kind of looking around. Oh, what's going on? This is cool. Yeah.
Maybe few of them, not the ones I mean, not the famous ones. The
ones that they had, the ones at the front.
The guys with the helmets and
but I was
the guy putting his feet
some
on
guy walking around with a cane, you know, an old grandpa.
Yeah.
But we've had an expulsion of leftness in the summer. There's some of those riots in the summer, which were terrible. Mm-hmm. We've had an expulsion. Talking about the emotional currents of the country. We've had it from right and left, and both blown off some steam. I hope now we're gonna work together.
I thought
who knows
it was
what
brought to my attention that
future holds.
That Trump is gone. He might make a speech here and there.
But we have
the people that vote for him, that's that rioted, they're still there.
Well, CCAP,
that mindset.
I haven't seen the CCAP address of Trump. I want to find.
Oh, that's tonight. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to look that
up. They built a golden statue.
That's what I was. Yeah. We do.
You can't write this stuff.
One of these days, that will be in the Smithsonian.
You can't make that stuff up.
And the thing about that golden statue, I kept hearing about it. I thought it was going to be some heroic pose with his hair, a tall figure, not on a horse, but standing there. Yeah. Anyway, and I saw them wheeling it in. He's kind of short and squat and cartoony looking, and he has a red, white, and blue blazer on. I kept squinting my eyes. It kind of looks like Donald Duck.
No pants on. He's like
no
Donald
pants.
Duck.
And and his hair is kind of like the bill. It's same color and shape.
Oh man,
it is a Donald Duck.
But do you have any music you could play for us? I don't know. Let's
music.
End with a theme.
Haven't had anything to start with. statue music. Sounds like medieval duck music.
Music for men landing on the moon.
Oh yeah, we forgot to show that.
Yeah,
and
that's
space thing.
And then the whole set is
Everything's falling apart. This is man landing on the moon.
Yes.
And they heard that music
And they
when they
heard that-
landed. Yeah, because there were aliens over the hill. You know, there were aliens up when they landed.
Yes.
And Buzz Aldrin said so. Yeah.
And didn't he have it like a? Didn't he
And
like
Neil Armstrong.
go off the rails after he got over?
Oh yeah, there's a good
It
film
was
about.
great. I
There's a
should
good
make
film
fun.
about that.
I should make fun of him. He's a great man.
But Neil Armstrong is quoted at some party saying that there was a ship over the horizon and all this weird stuff. And then later on, he retracted it and said, "I was just talking for the party, impressing people."
The landing on the Mars of Mars capsule is a wonderful thing that happened last week or 2 weeks ago.
What?
Oh yeah. So
Mars.
we had
Check the new pictures from Mars.
This was a great space show. Thank you,
Yeah.
Keith, for the music and all the information about your uncle.
Yeah, I thought
Yeah.
hope you enjoyed that.
Yes.
And
This is Van Allen's Attic. This is
Van Allen's-
Keith Van Allen. My name's Kaye Lazar. We'll be back. Stay tuned.
hit the button. We got to hit the daggone button. But